are in your favor. Hey y'all, the lesson for today. The lesson for today is do not.
We broke up in February. I was home by April, mid-April. I didn't, I had no plans on moving back home initially, but so in this time of all this, my parents had actually gotten divorced, and both of them had remarried. And so I had actual like step siblings, and my grandparents had moved to Nevada. And so I had a lot of family in Nevada, and I felt like I just felt like I had like an overwhelming feeling to move home, to be with my family, and specifically my mother, who the divorce took a toll on her, but she had remarried, and my mother was like a completely new person. I was like, I want to be a part of this person. So, uh, so I just knew I had to move home, and I really wanted to. And I came home for a couple interviews, as a pastry chef, and to talk to the church about, what that would look like how I could help, and not leading a ministry, but, put me in a Bible study, tell me events that need to be planned, like let me know what like you guys need to do, because I knew if I didn't jump right into, at the time it was easy for me to be like, oh shoot, sorry. It was easy for me to focus on work, and I was like, I wanted to be actively in my church, who has given me so much, and how I can help them grow. So I moved in April. That was hard because I was also living with my mom at the time, who I loved deeply, but we were not meant to live together long term. Sorry, hold on. So yeah, I moved home, and I lived with my mother for a couple of months. And then I actually met my husband in September, but a lot of things transpired that summer. There was a lot of expectation from me from the Las Vegas ICOC church, as far as, for whatever reason, for me, it felt like prodigal son coming home, because I was one of the only people still baptized and hadn't fallen away and wanting to be involved in the church, from my graduating class. And felt like a lot of pressure. There's a lot of expectation for me to help lead a ministry, and nowhere in my heart did I feel led to lead a ministry. And it was like, well, is that what God wants? And there was a lot of conversations back and forth about whether or not that was the right decision for me. And I knew that I didn't want to, but I was willing to help out in other ways. And so for me, that felt like that should have been enough. And so in July, I actually stopped going to church, to that church specifically, because I felt like I was being attacked, honestly. And I ended up, so I had left going to the Las Vegas ICOC and decided, I still wanted to go to church. I still want to be a part of a congregation. Like, I needed that family unit. And I knew the churches in California and Arizona. So I actually switched off going back and forth every weekend I was driving to San Diego, or I was driving to Flagstaff, Arizona, to go to church, and hang out with the sisters there, which, it takes a toll every week on me and my car, but it was something I knew I needed to, I needed to still be involved. And I can read my Bible as much as I want, but it's one of those, I need to be able to also be a part of, I just need to sit with disciples and discuss what's going on. And I needed those friendships. But I was doing that for about a month and a half before I decided to find a church in Las Vegas, because it wasn't, it's not a realistic situation to do that every week for me. But so I came across a church. I was essentially church hopping for about 3 weeks. And I found a church that it's fairly large, but they have their separate, like in Henderson, they have their building, and so that's what led me to wanting to pursue them, because I needed still like a small family unit to kind of grow. So I started going to the crossing, which is actually how I met my husband. And at the time, like when I met, like I didn't know anything about him. He didn't know anything about me. And then he actually worked at, I was helping out with the campus ministry. And he worked on campus, at the time for UNLV. And he saw me in a coffee shop. He said that he'd seen me before, and we started talking, and that's how he got my number for sure. But we instantly clicked. I didn't think that I wanted to be dating at that time, just because I was still trying to figure out, being in a new church was hard, after having been in a family that for years, and kind of feeling ostracized and kind of cast out was what it felt like, because some people stopped talking to me, some people wanted to know what happened, and so I felt like I was trying to keep things kind of civil in that way, and not talk bad, not say this is what went down with these people. I wasn't trying to gossip. I was like, this is just the decision I had to make for myself, to yeah. So yeah, that's how I met him. And we dated for 6 months before he asked me to marry him, and we got married 6 months later. So it all happened very quickly.
Yeah, crazy, right? Crazy, the chain of events that.
Yeah. Especially because I was definitely the person that was like, I don't want to get married, and I don't want to have kids. And I was doing that out of, again, selfishness and my own self-preservation. And I don't know, sometimes you just meet that person that, oh, I think we could do that. I could do that. That'd be okay.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that I truly appreciate about your story, and I don't even we haven't even really had the chance to talk about it at all. But like I'm getting emotional, and I wasn't planning on getting emotional. But so I know that you know everything about everything that has happened through the divorce, but you don't understand like the similarities in our stories, I think, enough to know why I value our friendship so much, even miles apart. But even through going through this whole divorce, my parents have gone through a divorce as well. And so even in trying to like figure out the at-home thing and all of that, and you talked about how like, man, I just feel like this is a time that I really need to just be back with my family, and there's this chain of events, you know, that are kind of going on that just sort of makes sense for me. And
Yeah.
For me, your story has literally been like this physical representation of, man, you can make the moves that you feel led to move, and it can work out. You know, like,
Yeah.
it doesn't have to be me trying to like calculate every single step or make sure that my reasoning is exactly what it should be, you know, all of these different things, but just kind of like, man, I'm just trying to make one faith move after another. And we eventually get there wherever it is. And so even with me and my planned move back home, it's, you know, coming up in a couple weeks. I'm just really appreciative of that, and even just like your willingness to talk about those things, because like I said, it's so cool to see like the Holy Spirit moving without there even needing to be this like planned camaraderie or like, I know exactly what's going on here, let me reach out to her, you know, like it's been none of that, but it's kind of just me still being able to see your story unfold, and then my story is unfolding sometime later, and like I said, it's literally just like, wow, God, thank you for the encouragement, you know, to see you still holding somebody's hand through a very similar process.
I think it helped. I realized that I was making these moves for me and what I felt would be in my best relationship with God when I stopped trying to please the people around me. And I think that that was something that, so when I moved back home, a lot of the speculation, and only one person actually came to like ask me about it, was that I was running away from that dating relationship. And I was like, what you guys fail to understand is that like I've been gone from home for 6 years and all these things have happened, and I can share as like my parents going through divorce, my sister was struggling with that, my like everyone remarried, we were struggling with that. Like it was, these things have happened. I'm not running from anything. I know that in my heart, like I need to go be with my family. And so, but I hesitated on so many moves because I'm like, oh, well, this person's going to be upset and it's going to upset these, like, I'm, you know, I have all these things going on. But once I was like, the only person at this point, like that has the only thing I have to consider is what does that look like for my relationship with God? And is it going to change that? No, it's not. And once I came to that true realization, it was much easier to make those moves, to be able to even do that. And I mean, I meditated on all these decisions for so long. I didn't just decide to like leave my church. I was like, God, if this is what you want from me, like I need the ways to do it. And in that moment, I had a sister in California, like, hey, I saw that you moved back. Like, do you want to come hang out? And I was like, yes, I do. I had a friend who moved to Arizona. Do you want to come hang out? Yes, I do. So those are the paths that were given to me. And it wasn't permanent. It was, you know, this is how I can kind of get back to my being myself and you know, really honestly what felt like getting back to doing things just for God, because I was like, well, if I stay here, they're going to want me to lead a ministry. I have no desire to do that. And I which to me felt like, well, if I don't have a desire to do it, why would you want me to do it? But, you know, so God put these avenues before me. So I, you know, I had the option of, you're still loved. Like these are the people that are around you. You have so many people. I grew up with so many disciples that, you know, that I still get to, that I still talk to, that I still see regularly. Like it wasn't the end all be all. So that was, it helps move those steps along when you start to realize you have to do it for yourself and your relationship and for nobody else, honestly.
Yeah, I love that. And so then, so now you and Joe are in this relationship, and you are really coming off the heels of a lot. You know, like it's a lot moving into that.
And so is me, honestly.
Yeah. So I know that it was only 6 months, the dating relationship, but what was that kind of experience like? That you find that like, man, this was actually the point that I just truly felt so much more free, you know, that like it feels like things have taken a turn, or what was that like?
So one thing about Joe is he's such a caretaker. He takes great care of not only me, our kids, but like his family, my family. And something that I saw, the turning point for me of like, I could spend my life with this person, is the fact that I wanted to resolve conflict with him. I sometimes, you know, you just don't want to resolve conflict. And he was the person I was like, well, if he's upset, if I did something, I'm like, okay, you've been the only person that I'm like, I have to have this conversation with. Otherwise it like ate away at me. And that was something that I was like, okay, well, does that mean that I'm being more sympathetic? I'm being more empathetic. Like I care about his feelings and, like I want to take care of him. I want to be able to take care of him in those ways. And Joe being who he is, like it seems quick, and it was quick, but I think once that turning point of, okay, like if this is something that we're going to do, like we can date. But for him and the stage of life he is in, he's like, I'm not, he's not trying to date for years upon years, like, because of our age difference, and he's already been married, he's been divorced, he has 2 kids. It was, if this is something that we're going to do, we need to have faith that it's going to work. And I needed to be in a place where I'm like, okay, yeah, I can be a stepmom, and I can support you in that way, because you're going to be the leader of our household. And growing up with that, I was like, yeah, that's the leader of your household. That's who it is. But I was having a hard time with that in my past relationships, because I was just trying to look out for myself. I'm trying to make sure that I can make it to the next day, that I make it to the next month. And he's like, well, how are we going to do those things together? And so that's kind of, something that I love most about him is that we have those conversations each month, like, and still continuous. All right, what does this look like for us? And yeah, he's great.
I love that, like, hearing that, it sounds like it's very clear that, like, the way that he loved you and your family and the way that you saw him love others around him was motivation for, like, all right, I'm the one that's tripping.
Yeah.
I need to have this conversation and resolve, just motivated by him that, like, okay, I want to do right by this man. I think that that's so amazing.
And it's the little things. It's, again, having what prepared me dating in the kingdom the first time was having someone ask you those questions, and then, how was your day? What did you study? These are the things I learned in my study. Can you tell me what you learned? Like, having those things come around again, it was easier for me to be like, oh, I need to ask him those questions. I need to be able to communicate to him, like, these are the things that I'm feeling. This is why it made me feel this way. And that wasn't something I could do in my first relationship. And that was why I feel like I learned so much, even in that short time that we did date, is that I learned so much about myself and how, again, I was selfish, unempathetic. Like, I wasn't sympathetic. I couldn't clearly communicate my needs. And with Joe, I was, the second time, like, just having known that and learning and going through the things I went through that summer, I was like, okay, like, if these are the things that I need to be able to express that. And I didn't want to sound like a crazy person doing it. And he accepted all the things that I said. So, it was great.
So you all were married for 2 years or a little over 2 years when you all got pregnant?
We were married a year. We got pregnant in September 2018 and had a miscarriage. And then we were pregnant again May 2019 and had a miscarriage. And then I got pregnant with our son September 2019. And he was born this May.
Wow. May, September.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot has happened in the last 2 years.
Right. Awesome. And then, so how has, I know that it's still fresh with him just being about 3 months, but what has that transition been like so far? Well, first, the transition from being single to married and a stepmom, and then the transition to having your own child within their marriage as well.
Being married was hard, as far as, like, my communication skills had already gotten better, but they weren't where they needed to be. And so a lot of our premarital counseling was a lot of me saying, like, the things I needed, and him being like, well, you never said that. And so that was a lot of our, like, premarital. I'm like, but I thought it, and you're supposed to read my mind. And so, so I had a hard time, like, I had a really hard time with that at the beginning, but it was living with someone new. That's different. I mean, boys are gross. I don't care what anybody says. Being a stepmom was hard because their mom, she was having a hard time in general. And so she was lashing out a lot at me, and it took everything in me to be like, she doesn't mean it. You need to stay calm. Like, if you start popping off, then all the things are like, everybody's gonna, like, all the things are gonna go wrong, and that's not what you need. And so I had to take I had to be very patient with with that relationship. And even within the last 6 months is when she'll text me now and, hey, can you make sure that the kids like get this done? I'm like, I totally know, I can totally make sure that they get this done. But I mean, I love our boys. I met them at an age which was perfect, that they feed and clean themselves. You don't have to do a whole lot, honestly. But I mean, and for a while, our youngest was attached at my hip. Like, I loved spending time with him, and now that he's gotten older, it like even makes me sad. Like in the last 4 years, I'm like, oh, you don't want to cuddle all the time anymore? Okay, I guess. And watching our oldest, like, just who he's becoming, and the kind of man I hope like that we can instill him to be. And they weren't a part of the church for very long when I met them. And so the last 4 years, like being able to go to church and kind of seeing his relationship grow with God, but also how he interacts with other people, like just being kind. And as you get into a teen years, maybe, it's hard. Teen years are hard. And so as we prepare for that, just, I don't know, I just love them so much. But being a step parent, it's not for the faint of heart. It was hard. I thoroughly enjoyed it for the first year, because some weekends you have them and some weekends you don't. So we got the best of both worlds, being a newlywed couple and having the boys. And then it was like a year, it was 7 months in. We actually when we started dating, I told him, I was like, I don't want to have any more kids. I think 2, like, that's fine. And more into dating, and as we got engaged, I was like, I don't know, a little us would be so cute. And so when we started, like, we weren't going to have any. And so about 7 months into being married, I was like, I really think I'd like to have, a child. And that was the path that we were on then. And having our miscarriages kind of set me back mentally, emotionally, spiritually, because at that point I felt like, God, I had done all these things right, and I was I had worked so hard. I don't know why this is happening to me. And at that time, so I found out I was pregnant in September 2018. We found out about our miscarriage middle of October. And I didn't go to church for the next 4 months. I just was having a really hard time accepting it and processing it. And Joe was still very active in the church, and he, in that time, I always said, I was like, I was not the best spouse I could have been. I was not the best partner at all. So I had gone back to school, and that happened. Like, it was just so much was happening. I wasn't the best stepmom I could have been. And in February, I felt like I was getting back on my feet, and then it happened, and it happened again. But that time my small group had really, we were in a different small group who really rallied behind us. And there were 2 women who just loved up on me and let me cry, let me yell, let me scream. And that's what I really needed. And I needed to regain that kind of faith in God. I felt like I was there. I have journals of me just apologizing to God for not being the best wife and mother and daughter to all these people around me who were just trying to love me. And I was just so angry that I couldn't let that in. And so I have journals upon journals of I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry, I'm so sorry. And just trying to really understand the path that God wanted us to go on, which led us to, having our son this year. And that being another story that I could help women through. And I didn't realize how much infertility was in even just the churches, and being able to discuss that with some women, these are the things I'm going through. I'm so sorry that you're going through that. This is what helps me. These are the scriptures that I've read. These are the journals upon journals of just emotions. And it's okay to have those emotions. So for me, it's just another thing that I get to be able to share as a part of my story.
Yeah. So So lots of sleepless nights now.
Yes. Yeah.
But it's a blessing.
It is a blessing. I wouldn't have it any other way for sure.
One thing that I wanted to ask about that I forgot about, but just came to mind. So, people who don't know you wouldn't know that you're actually in a interracial relationship.
Mhm.
So you're Black, Joe is white. So that also means you're raising two young white boys, which is a different dynamic than if it had been Black boys and maybe
Yeah.
like, um, was that any part of that hard for the relationship? Were there things that, like, because you all maybe come from different backgrounds in that way, that were like, oh, let me adjust here? Or for him?
Um, for him, yes. And that was mostly just about like how my family dynamics are. My family's very involved. They need to be a part of every single thing, and it's large. Um, and so that was new for him. I mean, like the first time that my grandmother met him, she literally told him, why do you want to date a Black girl? So that was like a whole situation in itself. Um, for us, I think it's honestly about where we live. Las Vegas is so diverse in that way. There are a lot of interracial marriages, couples, that for him, it didn't feel, I know for me, it didn't feel really any different, but for him, it was easier to adjust because we weren't in a place that would not accept us, I guess. But raising, it's honestly been more of a discussion now, just even with our son, but just with the things that are going on in the world, about teaching our sons to love everyone, no matter race, background, like, all these, like, this is just the person that they are. And so we've had more conversations within the last year, honestly, is more of, well, how does this affect how we raise our children? And it's having the hard conversations that nobody wants to have, with your kids. And my husband really truly understanding with the birth of our son that he's going to have a different kind of conversation with him because he's mixed. And it really doesn't matter how light or dark he'll be. Either way, he's Black. And that's something that we have to, those are the conversations that we have to prepare ourselves to have it completely separate than we've had with our sons who are white. And just how he'll be treated. And Joe has gone out of his way to like talk to my dad about, these are the things that you're gonna have to talk to him about, or that we're gonna have to, like, tell him, help me understand. So yeah.
It's so I don't know, I think that's just so powerful, just given that, like, especially after the two miscarriages, that you also end up having a boy in today's world. And so I don't know, especially with him being a Black boy, a mixed boy, that, like, man, the impact of what you all kind of like instill in him, will be so different, in so many impactful ways. So I think that that's also another little tiny kiss from God, that, man, I'm gonna give you a little boy, that you can also raise up to be strong and be a leader and that kind of thing. So I think that that's great.
Yeah, I'm very grateful for him. I do. Yeah, having a child is hard right now. But I look forward to seeing him grow up. I'm trying to, as we talk about like what the conversations we're going to have with him, but I'm looking forward to just, trying to also make sure that he's the best person, that he, like, be the best man that we can help him be.
Yeah, that's awesome. So as we wrap up, we'll do so with just one final question, and that is, just as you think about women out there who share your story in some capacity and may just be at a different part in that journey. Perhaps they're the college student right now. Perhaps they're the person in the abusive relationship. Perhaps they're the person who has left home. Perhaps they're the person who just moved back home. Perhaps they're the person making a decision about church. Perhaps they're the person who just met this guy unexpectedly or had a miscarriage. Any of those things that are all just so integral to your story. you being where you are now and being able to look back in retrospect, what would be some of the advice that you would have?
Lean on people. I don't think when I was first even switching churches, I didn't, even though I had sisters reach out, I didn't lean on them enough. As far as I didn't ask for enough help, I feel like. But also, just, sorry if you can hear my son who's starting to cry. Just being able to be truly open about where you're at. I think that was also a lot of my struggle. I was like, oh, I'm here, but I'm really like all the way over here because I'm trying to put up this image that is fine here. And if I tell you that I'm over here, you're going to think I'm nuts. So being completely honest about where you're at in life, and being able to express that, whether that's writing it down in that moment. I know I would be like, oh, this is how I'm feeling, but then not being able to express it later, because it wasn't cognizant of what it actually was. And then, so writing it down and just really understanding what that feeling at that moment is and not lashing out at the people that are trying to help you. That was also a thing I had an issue with.
Yeah, awesome. Well, thank you so much. I'm so excited to share this because I think, as I thought through kind of what I was thinking based on what I knew about your story was one thing, but then once we started to dive in, there was like so much goodness, so many goodies. So thank you for agreeing and just being willing to share, and even the heart of vulnerability to be able to just express in a way that like throws no shade in nobody's direction, makes nobody look a certain type of way, but truly just being able to tell the story from what your experience was. I think that's amazing. So thank you so much, friend.
Oh, exciting. I'm so proud of you.